The set of the colossal drama was filled with the boisterous sounds of the crew, huge lights, and the clinking of technical tools that moved here and there. It was almost evening, the sun was leaning to the west, and the shooting schedule was tight. Zhao Jinmai sat in his chair in an elaborate traditional costume, his hair neatly styled with small gold ornaments that shimmered in the light. From afar, she looks like a princess from the distant past who descended into the modern world. Zhang Linghe, who was sitting a short distance away from him, tried to stay focused on the script. But his eyes occasionally glanced towards Jinmai, as if there was a magnet that made it difficult to take his eyes off. He knows Jinmai not only as a colleague, but also as a person who has been quietly filling the empty space in his heart since the beginning of this project. When the director shouted, "Cut! Take a 10-minute break," the mood subsided a little. The crew scattered in search of drinking water. Some actors took off heavy costumes, while others chose to be alone in the corner. Linghe saw the opportunity. He knew the break was only for a short time, but it was precisely in that brief moment that he was able to get closer to Jinmai without too much public attention. With a light step, he approached the chair where Jinmai was sitting. Tired. His voice was calm, almost drowned in the crowd. Jinmai raised his head, slightly surprised but immediately smiled. Her smile was simple, but enough to make Linghe's chest pound. "Not bad. This costume is so heavy, it's like I'm really carrying the past," she joked. Linghe chuckled a little. "If it were true that you were a princess in the past, maybe I would be the soldier who is always waiting next to you, at least to make sure you're not too tired." The words made Jinmai's cheeks slightly heated up. He lowered his head, pretending to correct the folds of his costume, but was actually trying to hide the hue of his face. Linghe realized he had gone too far with his words, but he had no regrets. From the beginning, he knew Jinmai was a person who was able to make him talk without filters, something he rarely felt. The break went quickly, but the moment seemed long for both. They talked lightly about the scene that had just been shot, about the cruise joke that had made a mess of filming, to about the favorite food on location. In that conversation, there was a warmth that grew without them noticing. However, Linghe knew his feelings couldn't always just let it flow. Their world is full of highlights, hidden cameras, and endless public comments. One small gesture can become a big gossip the next day. But strangely, all those risks actually made him even more excited. Inwardly, Linghe promised, "I will use every little crack, every break, to get closer to him. Even if the world does not allow it, I will find my own way." The next break came after the shooting of quite energy-consuming emotional scenes. Jinmai sat down while holding the water bottle, his breath still choked, his face a little pale due to the high intensity of acting. Linghe approached again, this time carrying a small piece of chocolate from his pocket. "Want some? Sweetness can make your mood back again," he said as he reached out. Jinmai looked at him briefly, then smiled softly. "You always have a way to make other people feel better, huh?" "No one else," Linghe replied quickly. "You." The sentence just came out, creating a small silence between them. Jinmai stared at her longer than usual, before finally taking the chocolate and biting it softly. "Thank you, Linghe. For others, it may be a casual conversation, but for both, there is a deeper emotional layer. There is simple rapt attention. There is a feeling of wakefulness behind light words." However, not far from them, a senior crew had a glance with a gaze full of question marks. Linghe realized it, but pretended not to care. He knew that sooner or later, his habit of approaching Jinmai would become the subject of conversation. But will that stop him? No. It was precisely behind the camera, in between short filming breaks, that Linghe felt like he could be himself, not just an actor playing a character, but a man slowly opening his heart to a special girl. Day after day, the pattern repeats itself. Every time the director shouted, "Cut," and gave a break, Linghe always had a reason to get closer to Jinmai. Sometimes he brings water, sometimes just kidding to reduce stress, sometimes just sitting quietly nearby while reading the script. For Jinmai, Linghe's presence began to be something he looked forward to, even though he tried to deny it in front of himself. He knows their world is complicated, full of unwritten rules, and full of risks if rumors circulate. But every time Linghe was nearby, there was a feeling of calm that was hard to explain. In silence, they were fighting with each other's feelings. I want to show, but I'm afraid to be known. Anthura wants to reveal, but worries about the consequences. Linghe often asked himself, am I just another colleague to him? Or does he feel the same way? That answer had never appeared obvious, but Jinmai's gaze whenever he joked or paid little attention was enough of a clue. There was something glistening there, something he couldn't completely hide. One afternoon, after filming a long scene, it suddenly rained. The crew ran around covering the equipment with tarpaulins. Actors hid in tents. Jinmai, who was stuck in the middle of the set, rode to the tent, looked panicked as heavy rain soaked his costume. Without thinking, Linghe immediately ran up to him with a large umbrella. He opened the umbrella over Jinmai's head, even though he himself was wet from the hasty movement. Quick, come here, he cried as he sheltered Jinmai towards the tent. Arriving inside, Jinmai looked at him with a small laugh. You're soaking wet. Linghe just shrugged. It's okay. The important thing is that you are not sick. The sentence was simple, but to Jinmai it felt like a warm hug. He stared at Linghe for quite a while, and for the first time, he couldn't hide a wider smile than usual. From that day on, a small rumor began to circulate among the crew, that Linghe was too attentive to Jinmai. Some find it funny, others just raise an eyebrow. But for both, the moment became a little secret that only they understood the meaning. That night, they sat next to each other in the actors' dugout while reading the script for the scene the next day. The scene they have to play is a romantic one, where their characters stare at each other in silence. What do you think? Jinmai asked quietly. I should think about so that my gaze looks more sincere. Linghe looked at her for a while, then smiled faintly. Maybe you just need to imagine someone you really like. Jinmai fell silent, his heart pounding faster. He knew what he meant in the context of acting, but somehow the words felt too close to reality. What about you? He replied, trying to cover up the nervousness. Me. Linghe lowered his head for a moment, then raised his head with a meaningful smile. I don't think I need to imagine anyone, because the person is already in sight. Silence filled the room for a moment. Jinmai pretended to go back to reading the script, but his hands trembled slightly. Linghe just looked at him, satisfied with the reaction he had caused. A few days later, a photo leaked to social media. The photo shows Linghe sheltering Jinmai during heavy rain on the set. Despite the blurry quality, netizens were quick to react. Comments also appear. Are they really that close outside of acting? Their chemistry is very real. It's no wonder that dating rumors appear. Linghe is two gentlemen. Da make paper. The news had made the atmosphere a little tense filming location. Jinmai's manager reminded him to keep his distance. Linghe was subtly reprimanded by the production team. However, instead of retreating, Linghe was even more convinced. He realized, if the public can feel their closeness only from a small moment, it means that the feeling is real and difficult to hide. One night, after all the crew had gone home, Linghe and Jinmai were still staying on set for rehearsals. The lights had been turned off a lot, only a dim light left from some corners. Why are you still here? Asked Jinmai, while tidying up his costume. Linghe approached, looking at him deeply. Because I want to spend more time with you, without all the eyes that are always watching. Jinmai was silent. There was something in his eyes, between fear and longing for something he had never really had. I know we can't be careless, Linghe continued slowly, but I can't pretend anymore either. Every break, every time I get close, it's no coincidence. That's what I want. Words are like confessions, even if they don't say, I like you, right away. But for Jinmai, he could already feel it. His heart pounded, his face flushed, and for the first time, he didn't try to deny it. The next few days were filled with a new atmosphere. They remain cautious in public, but the small moments between filming become more meaningful. A longer gaze, a deeper smile, a brief touch that feels timeless. The public may have only seen snippets of leaked moments, but behind the scenes, Linghe and Jinmai were writing their own stories. A story that is born from a short break, from a small concern, from the courage to approach even though the world may resist.